Okay, well, yeah, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, folks. Welcome to Karate Without Belts. My name is John, and I am joined by the illustrious man in the chair with
Fun.
comma behind him and pictures and a beautiful looking dojo. And what is that? What is that tile? Not tiling. What is that? Walling you have behind you?
What's that? Sorry.
Like the wall? Like what do you have your walls? Like is that like that's not tiling? That's like
No, it's
paneling.
like barnwood.
Barnwood. Okay. Is it actual barnwood? Is there just like barnwood
No, it's
stucco?
the refurbished barnwood from Home Depot. So it's like I get so many boards in a box, and I don't have to deal with the mess of. I mean, drywall's cheaper, but I don't have to deal with the mess, and I can just nail it up and go. So it's works for me.
But the man with the barnwood background, Jeremy. How the hell we doing today, Jeremy?
We're doing good. We're doing good. Just finally catching up on some sleep. I I would like to know who the knucklehead was that decided to set off mortar fireworks at 3 o'clock in the morning last night. Got my dogs all fired up, but uh, that's kind of like the mystery of how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop. The world may never know. So it's like, all right, I just hope it doesn't happen again tonight. I'm getting
Where?
caught
Wait,
up on sleep.
it was happening by you or?
I think it's like a subdivision or two over, but yeah, yeah, you can pretty much hear it. I mean, if somebody's firing off mortars, you can definitely hear it. So,
I don't really have that problem so much here. Hopefully. That
I,
the thing is not let's say mortars in Japan really don't
yeah,
they don't really
no,
hold up. They don't hold too much
yeah,
water.
yeah. I mean, that's probably one of the good things I like, but don't like about living in Missouri because it's like you can buy fireworks all year round. So you're not supposed to shoot them in the city, and other than like July 4th or July 4th weekend. But
Well, they're burning all the old stuff off,
they don't
you
have
know.
to do it at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm just saying. That's all I'm saying. Just don't do it at
This is
three
the
o'clock.
neighborhood watch with Jeremy.
Yeah,
Um,
I know. I don't mean to sound like the grumpy HOA guy, but I'm not even that. Just not at 3 o'clock in the morning. Okay, come on. So anyway,
or what have you been up to with training lately?
very little. My work's been calling me all hours, all parts of the day. I mean, it's almost to the point where it's like I work, I sleep. I train a little bit on Tuesdays with my kid and his class, but that's about it. So I told my boss last week, I can't keep up this schedule. I'm gonna have to start taking care of myself a little better. So
That is the most important thing.
yeah,
Right?
I don't think he wanted to hear that, but yeah, whatever. He can fart and get over it. So
This week for me has been not great with necessarily sleep, but I've been more like, all right, I'm gonna wake up when I wake up, and it's been early every time, and then every time I'll get up and be like, all right, ready for training, let's go, and it's just getting colder and colder here,
hmm,
so I'm just kind of getting more used to just it being. Interestingly enough, like when I was like 4:30 in the morning, getting up and training, where I work out. Is anybody who watched the 100 kata video I did with Raul last year probably heard this. So the garage where I work out in is like has those old like motion sensors, but every time like it goes off, it sounds like someone's like shooting a gun.
oh,
So at 4:30 in the morning, I may or may not be incidentally waking up a bunch of people doing training, but meh, they didn't like it. They should probably not put in motion sensors. What's wrong with the light switch? But yeah, I've gotten a decent bit of training. I'm still kind of nursing a shoulder injury to a degree. So if it's not one thing, it's another. Enjoying this thing of getting older, Jeremy.
yeah, yeah, it's fun.
Say this being the quote unquote young guy in the group for years and years, and suddenly, you know, you know how it goes.
All the things I've told you to watch out for now all of a sudden are coming true. Jeremy doesn't know what he's talking about.
I never see. Okay, one. When the hell did you ever tell me watch out for XYZ when you get older?
No,
I remember you talking about like knees specifically, especially with like a Kusan-ku jump.
Well, what I now I know I did tell you is like, as you get older, it's like there's going to be a day when you wake up and then it's all of a sudden it's like, I hurt here. I didn't know there was a muscle here. What is this?
What's funny
like,
is
how does my spleen hurt? I mean, it's like Jamie Christmas. It's like that's.
Are you talking? Are we revealing on air the spleen technique in karate?
No, just
the muscle 5 technique. Probably gonna get sniped for that one, but
yeah. But anyway, yeah.
I wanted to bring up. I completely forgot to go over this with you, but that's fine. This week in Japan has been definitely a week for martial arts. So there's just two. These stories happened within like 3 days of each other. The first one is a man with bamboo sword arrested for attacking students at school in Japan.
Well, hopefully they were able to defend themselves.
Well, and so this is what was interesting because I live in Japan. I'm a teacher at a school in Japan. I'm not gonna kind of name names, but hey, look, anybody can look up anything. Somebody was brandishing a bamboo sword. So if I'm going to do a kind of on-site translation of this, I think it's a boken, and he was brandishing a boken, and he just starts attacking students. So he heard about 3 students, not like vitally injured, but he's just crazy guy walks into a school on school grounds, and he just starts wailing on students. The 3 teachers go up to him. One guy like grabs him by the arm. Another person uses a sasumata. A sasumata is basically a bow with like a U shape on the top. So it's basically like a modern day Nunti bow minus the ability to go stabby.
Yeah.
And then another guy used judo techniques to subdue the suspect, which I've got to say, kind of badass. If I'm honest, like it's a horrible thing that happened. It's traumatizing to the school board, but like, hey, look, guys, this does come in handy, especially when people do stupid shit like this. People try to attack kids. I definitely, because unfortunately there's been other news reports recently in Japan of teachers attacking kids, and again, I'm a teacher in Japan. I can stand by this, and people can say this is a long-standing problem within Japanese culture. It's good to see at least at least one school where they actually defend the kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another more spicier one. Organized crime-linked group of 100 brawl at Tokyo skyscraper restaurant.
Dang.
Yeah. So supposedly, this was a triad-connected group of war orphans who, from Japanese war orphans, were descendant of Japanese war orphans who were left in China. And this is what's kind of funny. There was supposedly a brawl of 100 people, but then the police came and like, oh yeah, it was just they found one guy who had like a small head injury.
Yeah.
Does that sound right to you?
Unless everybody's defense was really good, I guess. I don't know.
I guess, but it's like 100 people, and that's it of the mob.
Well, we probably got them out of there before the police came.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. But
they're paying somebody off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I thought these were just 2 interesting news stories. I think I'll link them in our description, just for people to reference. Very interesting. They're both interesting. Nothing, earth shattering. I don't know. I just wanted to see what you thought of.
It seems like every day, different things and more crazy stuff comes out. So, it's sad that I'm not shocked by it hardly at all. I mean, We had somebody here who was running down the street stabbing people. It was like, why? You know. So it's just, I think that goes back to be aware of your surroundings at all times. You don't know what's going to happen. So
the situational awareness that should be taught to kind of everybody, like understanding what situational awareness is, like kind of life social skills in that regard. It's just not something that people generally get into. Yeah, I just thought it would be an interesting little, like, this isn't going to become our Japanese news corner unless like more stuff like this happens. Then it would be like, hey, more interesting. But hey, it's always good to see like relevant stuff coming from. But today, what I thought would be good to get into is going back to talking about the early days, the caveman days of training. Jeremy might remember this better than I do.
Hey, just because I'm a second generation that walks on 2 feet and doesn't drag my knuckles on the ground in my family does not mean that I'm completely a caveman. I mean, come on, man. But anyway,
I'm saying you might remember this better than I do. I mean, I was younger at the time, so
I remember a lot more rudimentary stuff that was taught than what I see today.
And I think this was like something. It's both an image thing that I've always had and an issue that I've always had as well. With like, okay, maybe we're not accomplishing this image or not actually getting there. So maybe I can start us off with this. So Jeremy, when we first teach people karate, like what are the like if we were both in a school and we were running a school, right?
Yeah.
Possibly not under a Mexican restaurant. Possibly not.
Yeah.
And we had a group of new people come in. What would be the first things we teach them from a basic karate perspective?
I mean, the very first thing that I would start teaching is just start teaching some basic etiquette right off the bat. Start learning humbleness a little bit right off the bat. And then from there, I would start teaching just a couple basic stances. Not a lot. And it is interesting to see different places where they will have 15, 20 different stances. And I my personal opinion is, from what I've taught, I think it's a lot easier if you keep it to, especially beginners, maybe 4 to 6 different stances tops.
Because all I can remember is being taught like 2 at the beginning. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
So. Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yeah.
I need to learn to eat the mic. Birthday's coming up in 2 months, buddy. I could use a new microphone.
No, I mean, and then go into just a handful of basics, whether it's how to move your feet, how to block, how to do a couple kicks, and maybe throw 1 or 2 punches. Keep it very, very, very simple.
And I'm thinking about this, and this is something that really got to me. Something to do with media. We're not going to get into that today. We've already had enough episodes on that. But it's just this image of like basic karate.
Yeah.
Kick, punch, basic stance, moving around. And what I've seen a lot of, what ends up happening is there's a lot of, I don't want to say junk, but like, this is going to be our basic stance. This is going to be our basic handwork. This is going to be this and that. And then down the road, for whatever reason, let's say green belt, let's say brown belt, I don't know, black belt, right? These things just end up getting dropped for God knows what. Techniques, sparring, kata.
It's I guess one of the ways I look at it is a glitter syndrome.
Like that. Explain.
It's kind of like, ooh, this is flashy. Here's some glitter over here. Ooh, we're going to go learn that. Ooh, we're going to go learn that. We're going to go learn that.
This is coming from the man who's tried to convince me time and again that hair metal's great.
Hey, look, hey, how can you deny me that when Def Leppard has been crushing it stadium tour this year. So it's like, you know,
I'm not debating that. I'm not debating that at
I
all.
mean,
All I'm saying is that you have a criticism of glitter, and then like suddenly it's like, yeah, we're gonna go rock. We're
hey,
gonna be really manly with our open
hey,
shirts and hair that takes a long time to grow out and style. But yeah, we're gonna be manly.
hey,
And
just because I don't have a mullet and use Aquanet pink anymore does not mean I don't appreciate the fine things in life. But
all right.
let's
Yeah, well,
let's
and I think like finer things in life versus and this is where
but
you get this direct
but
comparison, right? You have the
but
music, and then you have the glitter.
but I think you can apply this to a lot of different things. Like people forget just the basics, and it's like, well, I already know, and I've run into this at my kids' school, and whenever parents say this stuff, I'm just like, it's almost like nails on a chalkboard to me. Um,
Ooh,
and I'm just like, I'd really like to sit down and really have a conversation about how truly stupid you really are, but that's okay. I mean, I'll let you be stupid. I'm not, I guess I'm just not quite ready to just confront the parents and say, do you really know how dumb you really are? But anyway, it's like, because like one night their kids, they get like little badges for if they pass a kata test.
a badge?
Well, it's
That's
the
a new one. I've never heard
well,
of that. Is it
I mean,
like just a thing like a patch or like
yeah, it's like a little patch. I mean, it's almost whatever, and after so many patches you can test for the next belt. I mean, it's just another way to show accomplishment and stuff like that. And so anyway, I was just kind of listening to the conversation the mom said, and the instructor was like, well, we're having kata class. Are you gonna stay for that? And they're like, no, they've already passed their kata patches and stuff. And I was like, lady, do you actually understand how ignorant you really are? But I'm just like, okay. I mean, you could really, maybe I should go have a conversation with her, but I'm like, whatever. I mean, if you want to be stupid. I don't care. But I mean, you're taking away your training and your ability to understand stuff is what you're really doing. But
well, I don't feel it's her fault though.
well,
In
she's
that
the one that's making the decision.
well, right. So I mean, they're taking a kid out of the class and stuff like that. But I mean, like, so you're saying this class, and this goes directly in what we're talking about,
Oh,
because
absolutely.
so like the if I understand the situation you're saying correctly, there's a kind of a regular class, and then there's like a kata class.
Yeah, I mean, there's like a specific kata class that kids can work just on these katas so they can get their little patches and whatever. I'm just like, okay, I'm like, I mean, it's just a way to separate it, and I'm like, okay, kind of cool, okay.
I mean, I think that's also kind of the failing of the system set up to a degree, because that's like, I mean, that's not a bad idea
Well,
on it.
it is it so much the system or is it the culture that we live in?
I mean, yeah, I
A
mean,
little
I
bit
think
of both.
because it's also like you're literally giving patches away for learning kata.
Yeah, and I mean,
Right.
think about how our culture is today. It's like, well, I've already learned it. I don't need to continue to do it. It's like, well, yeah, maybe you do.
To
Yeah,
quote one of my old students, it's not like we can't stop doing the kata once we learn it.
right.
So,
It goes back to I know I've told this story several times. I'll never forget the time I'm at the headquarters. I'm running class. We're doing the very first kata, and all of them are black belts except for one yellow belt. And I'm watching them, and I could go right down the list. This person's not paying attention to kata. They're thinking about working on their jaw. They're thinking about working on their bow. They're thinking about working on sai. They're thinking. I mean, every single one of them. finally, one of the other black belts was starting to pick it up. And what was sad is the only person that was really concentrating on that itself was the yellow belt.
That's a good illustrative story of this, though. I mean, like, because tying back to what you're saying about the kind of kata patches or badges or whatever. Wait, don't we already have a system for that? It's called belts. Like,
Well,
it's like a
yeah,
hat on a hat to a degree, and then like
yeah,
it. And
I,
I think like the system's kind of an outbreed of the culture that like is a weird like turnaround from just like what is just about having a class and then you do the kata in the class and then
well,
you don't have to have this like other time for what you should be doing in the class, right?
well,
It does
I mean,
like
I mean,
it just makes it the more you go down the road, like I understand what's going on, but it just seems oddly complicated and confusing and gets away from the point.
yeah, I mean, it just gives extra time. But I mean, the bottom line is this: where are we at with teaching karate? It's like, are we looking for glitter, or are we concentrating on what needs to be taught?
And the skills and like the need of skill development, right?
Yes,
So it's
absolutely.
like and this feeds back into it. So let's say we have our group class of like I don't know 5 people or whatever. We teach them basic stances, right? We teach them
Hmm.
basic punch kicks, right?
Yeah, yeah,
The next thing that should, I mean, in my opinion, I feel like the thing that should happen, and kind of the stereotypical thing you see in media is that like people are punching and kicking. They're punching and kicking bags. They're punching and kicking boards. They're punching and kicking each other. They're punching and kicking a battling Bob, right?
Well,
Whatever it might be.
I mean, the other thing though is, I mean, you start being able to tie in, movement, whether it's actual kata or if it's some type of exercise to where it's like you're moving your feet and your hands together.
And I think that's kind of the stage in which people think they're doing kind of advanced karate or they're really stepping up into karate. Where in my opinion, I feel like this is where we lose sight of things to a degree,
Maybe.
depending upon where you're going. But and I mean this more in the caveman sense of things, the
Yeah.
dragging of the
Okay.
knuckles,
Okay.
as it were. Because, and I think back to kind of stories from old Okinawa, like with like the military guys would go over there, and there is, and I'm not gonna. This isn't a myth. This is a reality. There was a difference between what Okinawans did a lot of the time, or what were supposedly taught, and what the GIs were taught. Right. I'm not going to go into that right now. That
Yeah.
is something we're going to be covering here in the future.
Yeah.
If you go back and listen to how they trained, right? You go back and listen to what kind of classes they had. It was 2 hours of just hard calisthenics, hard just basics, and then maybe towards the end you work on the partner drills, you work on fighting back and forth, right?
Or maybe a technique or two.
Maybe,
Maybe.
maybe.
But I mean, you get back into that, after you start learning how to move your feet, things like that. Then you start showing them like one technique at a time. And that's one thing that I've noticed that's very interesting too. I mean, when I started, I remember going to seminars and stuff. We would learn like two techniques, and we would practice them all day long.
And that comes into that older style of like muscle memory over like
Hmm.
enumeration. But that's getting a little ahead of the game because the reason I bring this up is because the image that we have of karate, the punching and the kicking of getting that down,
Yeah.
and then the later on stuff gets away from that with the techniques and the kata and
Well,
the glitter as a
it depends on how it's being taught.
true, true, but how many people can say they can keep and then and so this is where the divergence happens. I feel you get the Kyokushinkan,
Hmm.
right? Those guys. You
Yeah.
get the Shotokan,
Yeah.
or at least generally how they're thought of. Taekwondo,
Hmm.
right? Atarashi, like general sport karate.
Yeah.
which essentially became kickball, and maybe kind of more like high-end K1 type deals. Those guys, you put those guys, right? You take those guys who don't
Mhm.
really work a whole lot on technique, don't work a whole lot on that other stuff, but they stay very focused on the caveman stuff, on the brute force, kick, punch, move it, knowing how to move, right? Getting it, mixing it up with people, right?
Mhm.
Put them next to the guys who like dive cocaine headfirst into the glitter of
Oh
karate.
yeah.
Let's
Oh
say
yeah.
those who's gonna you put them in like the say the ring or the match, or you match them up. Who's your money gonna be on?
I'll go every time with somebody who's a caveman, or that is trained in that basic philosophy. Because usually, if you get away and start going after, glitter, as we're calling it, the new flashy thing, a lot of times your foundation slips.
Exactly.
A lot of people start talking about MMA. I mean, MMA comes up all the time.
True.
The one thing that I've noticed is it seems to me the people that have a solid foundation somewhere, it doesn't have to be karate. It does. I mean,
It
like
can be a Thai,
it,
Muay
it
Thai,
could
it can be boxing, it can be
it, it,
wrestling.
it could be amateur wrestling. It could be something. It could be BJJ. It could be some. I mean, if they've got a solid foundation. I mean, I look at GSP. He had a solid foundation in karate for a long time. I I I, I can't. I want to say it was Ishinru, but I can't remember if that was it or not. But I I, I could be wrong. I'm glad to be wrong. It's fine.
George
I'm
St.
not.
Pierre. George St. Pierre. Yeah, he was Kyokushinkan.
Okay. Sorry. My bad. Sorry. Okay, but
That's why we have this. That's why God created Google. Don't worry.
yeah. Okay. But he had a solid foundation.
Yeah.
Same way with Machida. Same way with even Chuck Liddell. Chuck Liddell. I mean, all of them had a solid foundation. Brock Lesnar, amateur wrestling. I mean, in professional wrestling, I don't want to call it that, but I mean, they had some type of solid foundation. Now you do get into some very interesting people, like your Nick Diaz and stuff like that, which I can appreciate. I don't know what his background is, but all I know is dude's pretty bad. I mean,
Who?
every fighter that every it's either Nick or Nate, whichever one. But I mean, you have people interview, that train to fight the guy. You don't train to fight the guy. You train to try to kill him. Otherwise, you will not win. And so it's just a different mentality. I think the guy's highly skilled. I don't know what his background is. I really don't. But I can appreciate that level of commitment. And so, in a way, he does go to that. He's got some foundation somehow, some way.
Right.
Whether it's just being an awesome street fighter, whatever it is. But I mean, he's got a foundation where he can dig into when he needs to.
Well, and I think this is the thing, where for whatever reason, which I think is one of the things we're going to lead into, at least towards the end, we are getting away from foundational karate.
Yes.
Just in general, like just in general, as kind of the quote unquote modern attempt to go back classical trained people are.
I'll even go a step further. I'd say foundational martial arts, period. Not just karate. I think it's going across the board.
Okay, I can kind of see where you're coming from. It depends on what it is. I feel, but it's like as much, and I say this in the wake of years and years and years of Taekwon's do, huh? Oh yeah, Kyokushinkan. They don't even do full contact. Tai Shotokan. Yeah, right. Like just years and years of that, and then having that attitude drilled into me, and then seeing these guys bare knuckle against a Makiwara,
Yeah.
go head to head with each other over and over and over again, being able to have more stamina, being able to last longer in a fight, being able to end a fight quicker,
Yeah.
right? And not having to rely on, and a lot of the time, people just relying on the compliance of others to accomplish something,
Yeah.
right? And to accomplish technique. Whether or not we want to talk about it, these techniques that we talk about, a lot of the time rely on compliance.
Yeah.
We don't have the actual real. We don't actually have the tools to practice them in a realistic way. So in my opinion, and I say that because I don't see those guys changing, but I don't see that necessarily being a bad.
Well,
But I see those guys. What I see those guys doing is evolving and using those bases to go into different things.
sometimes I see stuff being shortcutted.
So
In other words, like certain details are being missed, from older people training. Like, I mean, there's a certain way to punch. I mean, this is one of the big ones I see all the time. I always see people have their fist, kind of up instead of, straight. And I mean, if you hit something like that,
yeah, bye hand.
yeah,
So much
wrist,
for the tay.
yeah, that's going to hurt a little bit. I see little details being missed. Now, I understand wanting to get through certain part of the curriculum, but I also understand you shouldn't have a black belt that doesn't know how to truly punch either.
Where the issues I think come into is the loss of the foundation, kind of aimlessly kind of searching for the new thing,
Yeah.
and then just being like, oh, I don't want to do that old stuff. I just want to do the new stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then they can't practice the glitter like they practice the basic stuff,
You
and
can.
it happen a lot too. The people who get high on the glitter, as it were.
Everybody is guilty of it. At one time or another, everybody's guilty of it. I'm guilty of it. Yeah, I mean,
Oh yeah, yeah.
But I mean, like, my big one was I really wanted. My big one was probably I wanted to learn Noonday Bow so bad I didn't care what it took. Whether I was ready or not, I was going to learn it. Was I truly ready? Probably not. Did I get a lot out of it? Yes. Did I study my butt off on it? Yes. It wasn't something I took lightly, and it wasn't something that I neglected everything else for either. But for a little bit of time, that was kind of my glitter that I went towards. But that's me. I mean, that's just a personal, me just telling a personal one on me.
Well, yeah, I think the issue was, from our perspective, a lot of stuff was being kind of shoved down our throats.
Yeah.
To a degree, one way or the other. I think what you're talking about from one seminar where it was like 2 techniques all day, every day.
Yeah.
With like 2 days straight, right? Or focusing on one thing.
Yeah.
With like maybe ideas peppered around here and there, right? Too much thrown out everywhere all at once. Everyone needs to learn, hurry up, learn the new thing, to hurry up to learn the new thing, to hurry up to learn the new thing.
Mm-hmm.
And what I think ends up becoming a reverberation systematic is you have people kind of down that end of the trough who are like high on this glitter. And then they're the ones who are supposed to be teaching the people come in,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And so what they end up doing is shortcutting teaching people, or they end up having attitudes, they're white belts, we don't need to teach them properly, or we don't need to make sure this is done too well. Let's skip over this stuff. Let's do something else. I'm not worried about that. Let's grab bows and start doing stuff like on the second day or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And like there's nothing wrong with kind of having kind of the jazz version of karate, in my opinion, of just kind of like getting on the floor and kind of like, okay, how do we feel in the day? Let's see what works out today. I think there's room for that. Having an open mat or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's perfect. In the structure of a class, however, I think this is where things tend to fall off, though, and this is where you get into the issues you were just talking about, where you end up having people just learn from the get-go wrong, or learn from the get-go weak karate. And I'm sorry, it is. That's what it is. It's weak karate. Poor stances, poor structure, and exercises they don't end up using.
I guess I'm going to take this from Clint Eastwood in one of the Dirty Harry movies, and it's like, we shouldn't be teaching people just because it's stylish or it makes people feel good. It's like, I'm sorry if you're going to cry if I tell you you're doing something wrong. Too damn bad. It's like, I'm trying to make sure you don't get hurt, not hurt your feelings. I could care less.
There's ways around that too. It's like if you're teaching people in a positive way, right. There's ways around that as well. And I think I don't think you had this so much, but I had this is where you have the mommies and daddies complaining that their kid's not getting a belt on time or whatever.
Oh no, I've had my share of that.
But did you have that going up? When you were coming up, was that happening?
Well, I mean, when I was basically an assistant under Robbie.
Your first instructor.
Yes, I mean that school was massive. I mean, we had well over 200 kids in there. I mean, it was big. So I mean, mommy and daddy wanted little Johnny, little Becky, little
So that was even happening in the 80s, or
yeah, I mean, 80s, early 90s, but it's like, I mean, I get it, but it's also, you're not there just to receive rank. You're not there just to learn the next new thing. And I think maybe we got into that a little bit, and that might have ended up hurting the school overall. But overall, it was very foundationally sound.
Yeah, and this is what I'm want to hammer in the thesis is that no matter what the school is, no matter what the style is, whatever it is, right? People who are listening to this might be Shotokan people. Got friends who do both, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
The thing of the matter is, if you don't have a foundation like that, and you aren't going towards that, and you're like one of these classical Okinawan, we do, magic hand stuff. It's not gonna work. I hate to go all Joe Rogan with it, but the whole idea of if you're not fulfilling kind of the basic idea of kick, punch, basic stance stuff you're always going to be using. Mm-hmm. If the moment, the punch they're learning, the stuff they're learning from the day they walk in the door is not the same stuff they're using for their black belt test.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To be that foundational, to have something to back up to, right?
Yeah.
You're not this isn't karate anymore. This is, slap fun time. I remember us doing, God, what is it? I remember this. I'll never forget this. There was an advanced kind of a kung fu looking kata that we kind of saw a version of being taught about probably 15 years ago. There was a couple of friends or a couple of people we knew from Michigan who I started learning a version of it, and I showed them, right? And they're like, what is this, the happy clap dance? And I honestly was kind of offended when they said that. I'm like, this is the most advanced kata we have. How dare you? Da da da. Didn't go on the how dare you, but kind of internally that was the monologue.
Yeah.
Today I'm like, yeah, you guys are absolutely right, 100%. Because even though we had a bunch of kids get up there and do that kata, they couldn't throw a punch.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe one or two of them could defend themselves, but in all honesty, it is just something so far away from the basics that it almost is not the same thing at all. I feel that if we don't have that injection of caveman and we don't have that understanding of it, even when we get into that kind of softer stuff, you're going to be worse for wear. I think karate needs to really focus back up on that and less on this attempt to be like Aikido, or less on this attempt to be like judo, or less on this attempt to be like other stuff that has like a million techniques?
Well, I think where we get in trouble is when it gets pushed off to the back burner and therefore it gets neglected. And I think we need to come back to the table with this no longer needs to be neglected. This needs to be one of the core things you do. I mean, I remember every class I did with Robbie. I mean, the first 10 minutes were the same almost in every class. There might have been a slight variation, but it was basically the same. You did the first exercise, you did the second exercise, and sometimes you did the third exercise, or you did Subarito training. That was pretty much what you did every night for the first 10, 15 minutes. Every class.
Everybody.
Bar none.
Was that everybody as well?
Everybody. Everyone did that. I mean, that was bar none. That was the first thing you did. And
that's how you keep good basics.
And guess what? Before we started working on our own katas, we would do the first kata 5 times
together.
And so I mean, sometimes we would go in order. Sometimes it'd be you'd work on the first kata 5 times, and then you go do whatever one you were working on, or if you wanted to work on one of the others that you've been working on, then you do so. I mean, it was kind of up to you to do it, but yeah, I mean, that was usually the first 10, 15 minutes of class every night.
And that's pretty reminiscent of like other people's accounts of just back in the day. That's all you just did. You didn't come in wanting to do something. You didn't come in. I was in a meeting about something we're not really involved in anymore, with the podcast, and somebody was like, "Yeah, people can come in with a technique they saw online and show it to their sensei and ask them questions." And dear God, that sounds so annoying, right? Like, you just want to start class and like just get them through the basics, and then you like nowadays, it's a bit of, kind of going to tie into the next topic we get into the next episode, but like the fact that we have a million different people being like, actually, this is the real way you do karate on the internet. Mind you, we're not telling anybody what to do here.
Mm-mm.
We've just talked about kind of the basics that pretty much everyone does.
Yeah.
Right? Me and Jeremy have no opinion on what you actually start people doing.
Yeah.
As long as it's like
how someone structures it is their business,
Yeah, but as long as it's essential to like karate, as long as dog is not cat, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I mean, even the nights we did, like technique classes started out the same way. Technique, weapon classes, didn't matter. Always started out the same.
I know there's places in the world that are continuing with that, but I know there's more places in the world that are not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So, cool. I think that's a good. Oh, go ahead.
I mean, you and I, we witnessed that to where it's like, where people take for granted that stuff, and take for granted, you're typically, what I was told by my sensei was, whatever your first kata is the basis of what your system is. And there's a lot of truth to it.
Oh, absolutely. I would do Nahachi it's Nahachi Shodan pretty much all the way down.
Yeah.
For us.
Yeah.
For other people, it might be something else.
Yeah.
There's kind of that reasoning is a little maybe superficial, but like that on what you start with, but I mean that's kind of a different conversation.
I mean, it is the fundamental of what you do. I mean, you start with the pinyon katas or hangyon katas, whichever one. I mean, your foundation is technically footwork and moving.
Yeah.
If it's Now, Hanshi, like it is for us, it's more being able to have a solid base for whenever you do a technique, you know?
Right. And then like if there's actually analysis within that, and then you
Mm,
work around that,
yes,
those are the actual skills.
yes, absolutely.
But
And,
and this is where we're gonna get into next time when we
yes,
talk about like magic dust and techniques. And
yes.
this is and what's gotten people away from just having basics being done and having basic drills actually building skills. But beyond that, Jeremy, is there anything we have not talked about in terms of being cavemen? Should we grunt more
Oh,
in
yeah, of
training?
course.
Should we be shirtless?
No.
Why not? Look at all. I mean, pointing this out before. If you look at like some of the like pre-World War II like videos on karate, you got a lot of those guys are.
I get it. Yeah, I mean, we have air conditioning now. Number two, if I'm training shirtless, I'll scare myself, much less anybody else. So it's like, no, just no.
Fair enough.
I mean, do what's comfortable, man. Just, I mean, for me, it's
just,
shorts and my it's shorts and my mini
just
and
come in
t-shirt.
tidy whities. You'll be fine.
No, I
You
mean,
said you just said do what's comfortable. You can't take it
do
back.
what's comfortable. You know, I mean, me, like I said, me and my minions t-shirt. You know, it's like, hey, that works. That's usually why I train against that.
It's all good. I mean that's fine. Coming in 2023, our new line of training shirts, by the way. No, that's
I
only
mean,
kind of a joke, but
I mean, who doesn't love minions? I mean, come on, man. So,
I've never seen those movies.
dude,
I'm serious. I've seen like clips of them. I know what these things are, but like I've genuinely never seen one of those movies ever. I've seen trailers for them, but
man.
I digress.
Sorry, my role model as a dad is Gru. I mean, come on, man. He's awesome. Yeah. But anyway, sorry as we digress. But anyway,
Oh, it's all good. It's good to have a minions digression every once in a while. Cool. Well, I know you. Hopefully, your sleep is recovered. With that
jeez.
recovered rest, any plans for training this week? Jumping on the comma again?
You know, well, I probably will here pretty soon. I know I've got three or four big projects that I've got to basically work around the clock on here pretty soon. Then after that, things should calm down around Thanksgiving, and then I can probably set my schedule up to where it's like, okay, I can get to training on a schedule. And that's my biggest problem is just getting a schedule down for me so that I can train. So, but yeah, that's kind of the goal right now. Is just power through a couple things, and then it's like, okay, it's now me time. So,
I've got this week I'm gonna more running than training. Well, actually, this week it's both because this week supposedly there's a 100 kata challenge.
hmm,
So hey, maybe you can jump in on that. One kata 100 times.
we'll see. I'm not saying no, but we'll see.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. Well, we'll leave it there for today, folks. Hope everyone's doing well. Jeremy, thank you as always. And yeah, everyone, thanks for listening, and don't forget to keep on training.